sizzle, 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 sizzle. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. I used to burn stuff. That's right. Every 4th of July I used to burn stuff. And I remember a long time ago, like when I was like about 7 or 8 years old, like with toys and stuff. Like I remember I used to pretend like toy Fisher-Price villages were burning down and that type of stuff. I used to pretend that the Fisher-Price little people burned down the Fisher-Price village, and I would go sizzle, 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 just to represent it burning. And it was cool when I did that. But in real life, I used to burn stuff every 4th of July. I did all through the 1990s and late 80s. That's what I spent every 4th of July doing, was burning stuff. And what sort of things did we burn? Well, I remember how it got started in 1989. I was in high school. And I remember the whole point of burning stuff was to get rid of school papers. And I had this purple binder. I had this purple plastic binder. And I put a label on it that said, "Into the fire." Because it was papers I was going to burn. Because remember that song back then? "Into the fire!" That's where I got the idea from. There was this song back in the 80s that went, "Into the fire!" I think it was Dokken or one of those. And I put "Into the fire" on this purple binder of stuff I was going to burn. And it was cool. But all through the 90s I burned stuff every 4th of July. You know what types of stuff I burned? I burned phone books. Because this is back when the new phone books would come out in June. I mean, now you can't do that because I think they moved it to September or August. But back then it used to be June, so I burned phone books, I burned newspapers, light bulbs, bubble gum, of course, and appliances. Like there's one time out at Campbell County Lake we burned stuff. I think this is where this happened. A TV washed ashore, so we burned it. There's an old broken TV washed ashore, so we burned it. And I remember the fire. Another thing we burned. We always burned Katie Stein posters, like for the campaign signs. But another thing we burned when I first started, there was these Art and Man magazines that we had to buy in high school, and the school didn't want them back, and I had no use for them. It was just cluttering up the house, so I burned them. But the school had charged us $5 each for them, and we hardly ever used them anyway. This is for art class. My art teacher said, "Now you're going to have to buy some Art and Man magazines. Remember, these are $5 each." And he made us buy them, but we hardly ever used them. So we burned that stuff. So let's see. Yeah, okay. According to Wikipedia, it was Dokken that made Into the Fire. So anyway, whatever happened to Dokken anyway? The band Dokken, remember them? Whatever happened to them? They were cool, and Rat was cool too. But anyway, now as for the burning stuff, what other things did we burn back in the 90s? We burned underpants. We burned Mountain Dew bottles. I remember one time there was a Mountain Dew bottle that was filled up with water, and we burned it at one of the fires. And the fire put a hole in the Mountain Dew bottle, and water started shooting out of it. It looked like it was peeing. It did. It really did. And there's one other time we did the same thing with a Mountain Dew bottle, filled it up with water. And for some reason, it was right in the fire, but it wouldn't burn until finally it just went. It let out this big sigh of defeat, and it just wilted. It went. Another thing we burned We we burned an old moldy Barbie calendar. We burned bank statements. We burned envelopes. We burned food scraps. We burned styrofoam cups, beer bottles, and plastic forks, broken toys, and we burned broken scissors. And of course, there's the Bunning bomb. We took the wick of a smoke, like this Jim Bunning used to send out those newsletters that had his picture on it. So we took the wick of a smoke bomb and poked it through his face like he was smoking a cigarette, and we lit it. So it would go, all the smoke would come out, and then the flame would come down, and it would burn his face off of the newsletter. So I did. I used to burn stuff. And I remember one time I was in high school. This is a first district. There was one, so I guess I was a senior in high school. And there was one time, it was the end of the school day, and I was leaving school, and there was some guy, you know how they had that little parking garage under like where the school hung over, like the little parking lot. And there was a man who was about 40 years old. He was just standing there. He was holding something in his hand and burning it. I don't know what it was. He was just holding something in his hand, and he was burning it. I don't know what he was doing. And one of my teachers came out and approached him and said, "Sir, what are you doing?" And the guy just walked away, never to be seen again. But that actually happened. And that actually happened when I was a senior in high school. There's a guy burning things in his hand in a parking lot underneath the school building, out across from the library. But so let's see. I've got some email here, and national tracking poll thread. Obama's lead is expanded in Gallup polls to 5%. And those are just some of Obama's least friendly polls is Gallup, but his lead is up by more than 5% just in the past day in Gallup. So I wish I could still burn stuff every 4th of July because it was so much fun. I loved it. We burned a table one year, and I remember how hot the table got when we burned it, because it had like Formica on the top, and we burned it. And I think we even burned a mattress, or maybe an old broken lawn chair, sunglasses. All that stuff went into the fire. The fires just kept getting bigger each year, all through the 90s, up until like the late 90s. So, man, I just love to burn stuff.